I am doing this because there are people in my immediate area that have been turning wrenches for years and they genuinely don't know how to test the coil. So I'm going to my dad's old box of tricks. I have a few coils, but let's grab this one. It already has a condenser on it. And I'm going to grab, this is one that I know is good that I was using to test on other stuff. And I'm going to cut it here. Let's, okay, now I have to try and remember what I was doing here. I started my intro by grabbing the coils and the caps, and I was about to hit record. I realized I didn't have any codes on. So like 8 minutes later, I'm trying to remember, what was I doing? Ah, yes. Okay, so what's prompting this is I was working on my sleds and I had a bunch of coils that I didn't know if they were any good. And I was gonna upload a video showing how to test them, but this is the same as this. Exactly the same as this. And they test the same way, so I thought there's no point just showing how to do these when I can just show how to do these. And a few people in my neighborhood area, whatever, group of people that have been turning wrenches for decades, they get tripped up on the electrical side. Well, this is what I'm good at. So I thought it'd be nice to do try to do a quick video on how to test these things. I think I have enough leads. A condenser is just a capacitor, that's all it is. The old word for capacitor is condenser. Automotive never upgraded the word for it. So when you buy a condenser, you're just buying a capacitor. Let's start with that. So capacitance, you can buy a fairly cheap meter that would measure capacitance. Although the one I'm using is not cheap. It's also obsolete. But they run around, okay, so one end, come on, other end. 222 nanofarads or 0.222 microfarads. That's normal for a capacitor or a condenser for automotive purposes. They're all in around that range. Some are higher, some are lower, but not much. So that's dealt with. This is just a capacitor. Next, how does this work? So a coil has a positive, a negative. Inside the coil there's a primary and a secondary coil. I'm not going to go any further than that because words are hard. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Words are hard. So positive, negative, battery. So let's go to battery. Come on, let's get there. Battery goes to, come on, negative of the coil. I tested this one before, so I know it's good. Okay, output to the spark plug. This is the obvious one. It hurts when it discharges, so keep your fingers away. Negative's hooked up. This guy here, it's a, I can't remember what they're called, but they basically make a little bit of light. Easy way to test for spark. I throw these in all the time. It's faster. You can look at the end, but this always guarantees you're getting something running through. So that goes to there. This end is buggered, so all it needs to do is touch. Okay, next. So, with the coil, we're just going to go positive. To here does nothing. It'll spark. But that doesn't do anything because it needs to go through a capacitor. The capacitor builds charge, and when you break connection on the coil, as you break connection, the capacitor discharges, goes through the, I don't know if it's the primary or the secondary, which one they call it, but basically that field breaks down and it emits spark to the plug. So here's how it works. All of these condensers, the body is ground, so I need to ground that. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm grounding the body to battery ground, which is the same thing as the negative on the coil. Okay. So now this whole thing is active and ready to go. Where the points come into play, the points are actually the connection between my battery, this lead. When I touch that, that is this entire connection. So this end here is this. The body of the points would be this. So if I do nothing, nothing happens. Oh, what am I doing? Oh, it would help to actually add power to the coil. Camera down. So this end of the capacitor or condenser hooks directly to the positive of the coil. So now you got battery power here, which would be through the points, and every time these two connect, it makes a spark, which is the same thing as what I'm doing right here now. So every time I do that, you'll see a spark. And I think you should be able to see it at the spark plug too. So that's the way to test a coil and capacitor. Now that doesn't mean the coil itself is getting weak or the capacitor itself is getting weak, but it's a quick way to make sure you don't have something dead. So when you're trying to crank an engine, you don't know how to troubleshoot. Coils, condensers are easy to pull. This whole setup took me less than 3 minutes to do. And you can start with something that you know is working, so you know you're getting spark. And then I'll throw my testing of these guys at the end of this video. Maybe. I don't know if there's any point. But it's the same deal. This end goes to the ground here. This is where it hurts. And this is where you apply your 12 volts. And this end of the condenser plugs into here. Now I'm going to disconnect all this so I don't get zapped. With the sleds I was working on, it's not points and capacitor, it's what they call a CDI box. That's a slightly different beast, but that can be tested too. I'm not doing that here. The purpose of this is just to check to see if a coil works, to see if your condenser works. Real easy. You don't have to do anything with the points when you're working on an engine. You can just see if these things are working right first. The points The big thing with them is they lose contact. So if you're not sure what's going on, drive a screwdriver between, or a knife, between here and here. Bypass this part because it usually gets burnt up. Sometimes you can clean them, sometimes you can't. I've never not been able to clean them, but it's just making an electrical connection. So points are not that complicated. They're not complicated at all. It's either they're making contact or they're not. If they're not, clean them. If you can't, replace them. In terms of condensers, if you can't get the right one, grab the wrong one. As long as you can plug it in, figure out a way to plug it in, it will work. If you can't get the right coil, grab the wrong one. They all do the same thing. They're just making spark to the plug. That's not entirely the entire story, but it'll get an engine running. And that's about it. I'm out.